I'm Andrew Levine, the CEO of Koinos Group, inventors of Koinos, the blockchain with no fees.
And I'm Adam, founder of GFAM, a platform that completely decentralizes earnings for content creators.
And this is our decentralized future, where we talk about issues and interview people on the cutting edge of technology to help prepare you for a more decentralized future. Today, we're here with Scott Cunningham, who's an expert in leveraging decentralized social media platforms to increase people's financial freedom.
My main focus is social, but I also do a little bit of, like investing, passive income, all that good stuff as well. And also kind of like living the decentralized life, spending, all that kind of stuff as well.
I mean, to be fair, I think you're probably one of the most decentralized creators that I know of, because I've seen your content everywhere. Every time I've found a new platform, you're already there. You're already posting there.
Yeah. Yeah. Joel Valenzuela is also really, really good. He's been unbanked for like 5 years. So he's way further in it than I am in terms of going full decentralized.
When I look at everything you do, I think, wow, that is a lot of work. Is that what the future looks like for ordinary people out there? Because it seems really hard to do everything you do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect most people to be on like 40, 50 platforms. I expect most people to just be on like maybe like a handful, like 5 or something like that, or maybe not even 5. That might be too many. But hopefully as things progress, I hope we see like tools that we have for like normal traditional social platforms like Buffer or Hootsuite, things like that, to allow people to easily set up like scheduling and be able to like bulk schedule a lot of these things and set up just a bunch of different tools that'll make it a lot easier for people to use multiple platforms, cross posting, bunch of different things like that. But it's still pretty early days. I mean, most of these platforms don't even have analytics, which makes my life way harder because I manually track everything. But yeah, I think soon, once we start to see more of these tools, it's going to like really, really blow up and people will be able to use a lot more. But yeah, right now it's a lot about just awareness and people learning about what platforms are out there and kind of getting started.
Yeah, I kind of see it almost a little bit as like hedging your bets. Like, we don't know which platforms might exist in 5 years. So I kind of feel like you hit them all to see, like, so that you've got footing in almost every platform, really, which I think is
Yeah,
a good way
yeah.
to do it. But it is obviously a lot of work. And I'm sure maybe 90% of your effort might go unrewarded, but the 10% should do really well.
Yeah. And I'll say like it's not like the platforms that I'm not doing well on are just, completely frivolous, because say I'll post a link back to my Odyssey channel or to YouTube or to one of my other platforms. So a lot of it still kind of, helps and it'll grow my other platforms or whatever it happens to do. So even if there's a platform that I'm not doing super well on, or a lot of the effort is kind of lost, I wouldn't say it's like for nothing. And that's why I always recommend people to just like mass distribute. For me, the original motivation was more so about like anti-censorship and just being as distributed as possible. So if there was ever an issue, I mean, I've been banned from Vimeo, Daily Motion. I don't even know why they just banned me off of those platforms, but it was starting to like wake something up in me that I was like, okay, like something clicked, and I was like, yeah, like I have to spread everything out and make sure I'm on all these platforms. And then, like you said, hedging my bets. It's definitely been the case where being super early to a lot of these platforms has allowed me to become one of like the most followed platform people on the platform. And yeah, it's super beneficial to be doing that, and it's definitely paid off. So I highly recommend people to get in earlier than later and at least kind of get situated on these platforms so that, if they were to take off, you're already kind of set up.
Yeah, definitely. There's been a few things in crypto land where something that I didn't really think about has been like my biggest valued asset or whatever. Like, there's been so many little surprises like that, which, you can't ever
Binance
predict.
coin? It's like, what? Where did
I,
this come from?
Yeah.
Right. So what's your kind of overall goal? Is it basically to build your audience?
Yeah, I mean, originally it was just kind of, I was exploring these social platforms and I realized there was no, or a very, very little educational materials or guides or anything like that. So that was kind of my main focus originally, was just providing education around these platforms. And that's still largely my goal, but I've sort of branched off and done more. And I would say now the goal is kind of building out a framework for people to be able to follow, to do something similar to what I've done. Because I wouldn't say I'm like a very popular creator, in a sense that I have a fairly small YouTube channel. And if someone looked at that, they wouldn't be like, oh, well, like you could live off of whatever you made from that. But when you add up all the crypto social platforms together, it's almost like a living wage. So it's to show people that you don't even have to be like super popular or anything like that. You just have to kind of put in that effort to be kind of everywhere, and then just reaping all the rewards from doing so. And then also like to kind of build out this framework for the decentralized life, being able to live on crypto, being able to retire in like 10 years or less and live off of that, like live off passive income. I'm doing a lot of different things with my channel. But a lot of it is just kind of building out these frameworks for people to kind of follow, with guides and all the stuff that I've been putting out. I put out like a monthly report on like what I earn on various social platforms and how they've been performing, so people can kind of keep up with that as well. And it's just kind of filling like this void that I never see anything like that. Like I don't see people putting out reports on like what they're earning on crypto platforms, or which social platforms to look at, or even like a lot on like where you can earn passive income on crypto. I mean, that's becoming more popular, but I was kind of filling the gap of what I wanted to see, and then just doing it myself and then sharing it. And that's kind of just what I've been doing.
Well, it makes sense. And I feel like one of the commonalities between what you're doing and what I'm trying to do with my company and our project, it speaks to how difficult these technologies are still to leverage. And so it creates this niche for people, for educators. We're on the technical side trying to build better technical tools and protocols for better user experiences. But just because there is money to be made on these platforms does not mean it's easy for a good content creator or any content creator to take advantage of those tools, which is where I see you stepping in and try to improve that usability. So are there any specific platforms or projects that you're seeing that you're especially excited about at the moment?
It's hard to nail it down to a couple, but I would say like the more decentralized the project is, the more support I have for it. So like two really good ones are Library/Odyssey and Hive. They're very, very decentralized. Hive is probably a little bit more decentralized, but they're to the point where I'll never have any concerns about my funds or my content or anything like that. So that's kind of what I would recommend. The more decentralized it is, the safer it is. But at the same time, a lot of platforms out there are kind of touting, we support free speech, or we support this, but a lot of them don't actually, have that truly ingrained in their policies and in whatever they've done with the blockchain. A lot of them, it's just kind of like a marketing thing. So it is important to kind of figure out what's actually delivering and what isn't. And it's kind of hard to determine that sometimes, especially for like the lay person. And that's kind of what I've been doing with my channel, is going through and reviewing all these different platforms that are out there. So, because I don't expect, like I said, many people to be using many platforms. So I'm kind of going through all of them and then letting people know what I think is the best use of their time.
It's interesting you mentioned Hive, which I'm obviously very familiar with, and Library, which I'm less familiar with. what does their technology look like? How decentralized are they? Are they delegated proof of stake like Hive? Do you know anything more about that? Like how
Yeah,
decentralized
so
are they?
yeah, so Library is the underlying protocol, and Odyssey is just like one of their interfaces. So I would liken it to, the Hive network, and then like Peak D is just like one of the interfaces on Hive, and that's just what they've created. But anyone can create an interface. Um, Everything is run on the blockchain and stored in content hashes, and you spend some LBC to lock it up in the blockchain. Um, it's like I said, it's not as decentralized as Hive, but it's almost as decentralized as Hive. You're never going to have any issues with like your content being removed. There could be some kind of filters on Odyssey, for example, but if you were using the actual decentralized app, you would get just the raw content that's out there. There's a little bit of filtering on Odyssey, but it's not anything like, super super censoring, I would say.
Didn't the SEC try to sue Library? Was that a thing?
Yeah, they're still going through it's they've been going through this case for like 3 or 4 years. So yeah, and it's still ongoing. So that is kind of yet to be determined, but essentially they're like Libraries arguing that because you need to use LBC to use the platform, it's just a utility token. And obviously the SEC is disagreeing. So we'll see how that plays out. But they're saying that, the protocol should still live on regardless of what happens. It is decentralized. There shouldn't be any changes if the SEC rules one way or the other. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's pretty hard to sue a decentralized organism, really, when it comes down to it. If something's truly decentralized, like what do you even target?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and forgive me, I don't know much about Library, but what do we know about the nature of their decentralization? Do they have proof of work mining? I assume it's MIT open sourced. What's the
it's proof of
consensus
work.
on it? It's proof of work. Okay.
Yeah, it's a proof of work blockchain. And yeah, I mean, it's all of their stuff is like fully open source. You can see it all on GitHub, any commits they make. Everything is very, very transparent, open source. And again, like I said, anyone can spin up their own interface and do things differently. So like that's kind of the beauty of it. There isn't a lot of development in terms of like new interfaces being made currently, which I would love to see. There's way more development on Hive, and that's kind of why I would say Hive is a little bit better in that sense, because there's just so much more going on. But Library definitely has the user base, which is key. I think right now they have over 10 million users, and I think they have like 1 million creators. So it's been growing like exponentially, and I would say it's probably the biggest social platform right now that's integrated with the blockchain.
Yeah, I think the advantage Hive has is that it's kind of been around longer.
Yeah.
Having started as Steam and had managed to build that developer base, as you mentioned. I think what's interesting about Library and Odyssey is the rate of growth has definitely been impressive. I think just on the previous point, one of the things I'm learning from the process we're going through is that what apparently you need to look out for from the SEC, and this is not legal advice, is whether it looks like you sold tokens to fund development of your platform. So it may be the case, know nothing about this, that if you go far enough back in the history of how Library launched, that might be the argument that they're making. Not that I'm saying it's a good argument or an argument that should be made, but if it looks like, say, for example, Library like mined a bunch when nobody else could mine, I think Library is this interesting kind of like relaunch of Steam in a lot of ways, and maybe learning from those lessons. One of the things that I'm always worried about when I'm interviewing somebody is that we're painting them into some corner, not corner, but into some role that they're trying to get out of, that there's something they'd love to talk about. And we're just saying, no, your social media and decentralization, Scott, like that's all you get to talk about. And I just want to make sure that if there's anything that you think is more interesting or more important to talk about, that you get the chance to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, decentralization, crypto, blockchain, financial independence, earning passive income. That's kind of what I'm all about. Um, a lot of what I'm trying to do is help people so that they can live very frugally and then earn enough money to be able to like cover their lifestyle passively. And that's like something I'm super passionate about. And I don't think a lot of people approach finance very mindfully. I'm very extreme in a lot of the things I do, right? Like if I'm going to use blockchain social media, I'm going to be on like 60, 70 platforms. If I'm going to be frugal, I wear this t-shirt and khaki shorts every single day. I don't have a car. You know, I live with a bunch of roommates. I go extreme with everything I do. But yeah, I mean, like there's nothing specific that I want to talk about, unless you want to dive into like frugality or passive income or anything like that. But I'm always interested to talk anything crypto, decentralized finance. It's always a good time.
So one thing that I personally really love about creating content is that kind of building block scenario. So like you put out a piece of content and then like maybe even like not immediately, but like a year later, it becomes like one of the most Googled things on your website. And that's like a big part of decentralization. Obviously with your YouTube channel, you probably have older videos doing better than newer videos, maybe not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
one of the problems that I find with like Hive, for example, is it seems to be like your content is really only relevant for 7 days or even just 24 hours or whatever, and then it just drops off completely. Are other social media sites like that? Or is that like, you know, do crypto sites, do they tend to be like, it needs to be immediate or nothing happens? Or is that slow build that you can see in other platforms?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of half and half. A lot of crypto platforms have kind of based their model off of Steam and Hive. So a lot of them do kind of work that way. And then there's also like clones, direct clones. So yeah, I would say a lot of them do work like that. Like off the top of my head, PocketNet, Blurt, Whale Shares, So Me. There's a bunch that do it that way, but like Library, for example, it's just whenever you get a view that's validated, you'll earn a certain amount based on how much viewership you normally get. In terms of like Publish OX or Read.cash, it's more based on engagement. So, you know, it varies, but I would say it's kind of 50-50 between the two. And I don't know which model is necessarily better, because I do like the idea that you're kind of incentivized to keep making content and not just, you know, you've made one piece of content and then you just kind of rely on that. But I also understand that, you know, if someone makes a piece of content, it takes them a year to make, and then they can only earn for 7 days. Well, you know, that's really unideal. But I would say then maybe you take that piece of content and you start cutting it into clips, or, you know, whatever it happens to be. You can find a way. It kind of incentivizes you to be more active as a social media content creator. Like you can't just post once a year, you know, you kind of have to keep up with your audience. So it kind of incentivizes that. So I see both sides of it, but that's also the beauty of using multiple platforms and kind of spreading out your content. You can kind of get an idea of how all these different platforms work and what works best for you. So, you know, if someone doesn't like that specific earning mechanism, then they could use a different platform. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm super interested in people's approach to retirement. So normally people like they do their job, they do it for 30 years or whatever, and then they have their pension or their 401k or whatever. But and then they stop working, maybe like do something else, or maybe just go on holidays forever. But I kind of feel like with the new way that things are going, like how would you see your retirement, as it were?
So my goal was, if I could save 65% of my income for 10 years in a row and invest all of it into passive income generating like stocks, like typically dividend stocks, I would be able to have enough passive income to cover my lifestyle. And I've been doing that for the past 3 years and I'm on track. But I mean, with crypto, I'll probably end up retiring sooner than that. But that's my kind of framework that I'm working off of. You can change that where it's like you save 50% of your income, you can retire in 15 years, assuming your expenses stay the same. And that's kind of what I've been building off of. And I want to retire where I've just got, I mean, my goal is 5% dividend yielding stocks, and get it to wherever I need it to cover my expenses. And then I can retire and just live off of that passive income. So that's kind of my goal right now. And I think that's the better way to go about it. I mean, at least in Canada, we have the benefit of tax dividend credits. So outside of our TFSA, which is like a tax-free savings account, which you can also earn dividends tax-free, we get a lot of benefits for dividends, especially if you don't have any other income. So then I would retire, just do this probably full-time content creation, and then have my dividend income and just kind of live passively off of that. And I think that's the best way to go about it. It allows you to, be covered and not have to have like a large lump sum that you slowly take away from and hope that you'll have enough before you die. I'd rather go about it where I just cover my lifestyle and then I can afford to do other things. But for me, it's not about like not working anymore. It's just about not being forced, not needing to work, but I'll just do the things that I want to be able to do, create content, all that kind of stuff. So that's my goal. And I'm kind of building out that framework for other people to do the same thing, given it's, successful, obviously. But I've been tracking along. It's only been a couple of years and it's been going very well.
So I feel like one of the challenges with monetizing your content is using the actual technology itself, which is a whole suite of challenges. But there's also creating the content itself. That's the hard part in most platforms. Have you learned anything about that process? Do you have any tips for people who are struggling to create content? I think a lot of people do struggle to regularly create content.
I think I've had a lot of content creators reach out and ask me this. And I think the biggest issue, or the two biggest issues, are they get too concerned about specific topics and then they have nothing to talk about, and they have no ideas to create any content from. For me, anytime I think of an idea, I just write it down in my ideas list. And now my ideas list is just so ridiculously long. I'm like struggling to get the things that I want to do. And I think that's a much better position to be in. And all it really is just, if you think of anything, or, someone asks a question on YouTube or whatever, take that and turn it into an entire, piece of content. Plus a lot of it is just like things that you're interested in and then discussing them, or, trying to make it more about like documenting things that you're doing. Cause I feel like a lot of what I do is just documenting. Like I learn how to use something, I document the process, and then I kind of just explain all the things that I'm doing. And then I turn that into a guide, for example. And I think a lot of people are way too concerned about appearing intelligent. They'll restart their video every time they say, things like that. And then they begin there. It's just too much perfectionism, as well as, not having enough content to create ideas off of. And then, or, they create something and then they don't think it's good enough, and then they scrap the whole thing. So a lot of it is also just diving into it and just doing it, and then kind of iterating as you go. I always say the worst thing, like in the worst scenario, you can always just delete the video or whatever. So like it's not a huge concern. And I mean, if it's if you don't have a big following either, no one's really going to see it if it was bad and you didn't like it and you wanted to remove it. I deleted like the first like 50 videos that I ever put out. So I mean, like it's not a big deal, and I feel like people don't really see that until they just dive in. And I mean, it's the same with anything, right? You just have to start and iterate along the way versus spending way too much time preparing to start. I see a lot of people who are just, they're spending a month building their logo, and they spend another month to come up with their mission statement or whatever. And then it's like a year later and they're like, like whatever, it's too late now. Like I took too long to do this thing and I'm not going to do it. So I think a lot of it is just diving into it and getting started. And those are kind of like the two main things that I see with content creators, is just that they struggle to come up with topics and they get too worried about perfectionism.
I think part of the problem as well is like traditional social media, like YouTube and Facebook and whatever. The algorithms kind of force you into being very niche. So you want to be like, I don't know, the vegan cooking channel or whatever, and you can't do anything outside of that because the algorithm doesn't really allow that. Where I think decentralized networks, things like Hive, where there is no algorithm, they can just like, you can post to this community and then you can post to that community. Like it allows you to be that kind of multi creative type person where you can do so many different things and it doesn't affect any algorithm. It's just like, oh, I enjoy this because it's about this topic and I just ignore the others, or I never see the others, or I just enjoy everything that you do because you're doing it and not because of the specific topic. So yeah, I like that we are going into more of a decentralized world where we don't have to be like the one thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are chasing the algorithm, so to speak, on YouTube, without realizing that the algorithm is just trying to guess what users want. It's not necessarily what they want, it's what it thinks they want. So then the people who are trying to just produce what the algorithm wants is really just what the algorithm thinks people want, and that's not necessarily what they actually want. And then it's constantly changing. So you might be making content that people do like, and then you're trying to change for the algorithm, and then people don't like your content. So it gets people in this just in a bad state where they're kind of chasing that clout and they're not staying true to their, what their audience is actually about and what they're actually about. That's always the key thing, is to just do things that you're interested in. Because also it's like you're not motivated if you're trying to talk about something that you think is good to talk about, but you don't actually, like, you're not interested in it. It'll feel like work. Another thing that I would say for content creators is only do what is within your capacity that you will do. So for example, I tried to write out all of my subtitles manually at one point, because I was like, oh, like it'd be way better if I had all these subtitles, and it was taking me so much work that I was starting to procrastinate and do less videos, because I was like, oh, these subtitles are going to take so long to do. So then I was like, okay, I'm just going to use the auto-generated subtitles and not make this feel like work for myself. Because once you start to do that, then you're not going to put in that same effort and you're going to get burned out. So, I see a lot of content creators, they use stock footage and they've got all these animations and cuts everywhere. I could do that extra stuff, but it would take me so much more like work that I would start to procrastinate. I'm more like talking to the screen and doing screen sharing. And that's kind of just like the way that I've done it. But, maybe in the future I get a video editor and I can actually do that kind of stuff. But you should just be doing what's within your capacity to do, that you're willing to do, because otherwise you're just not going to do anything. And I think that's a really big part of like burnout for content creators. They're trying to do more than they're willing to do, and then they just don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, based on my experience back when I was flirting with content creation, those were all hard learned lessons. And actually, you told me in one of the previous conversations we had, you had this great Alan Watts quote, was it was something like, if you want to be interesting, be interested. And yes. I thought that just distilled so much wisdom. If you're not interested in it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many animations you have. It doesn't matter how great your subtitles are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Alan Watts is so much wisdom. Highly recommend people to check that out. I've listened to every single lecture he's ever put out, and I've read a ton of his books. Super, super great guy, and a lot of wisdom there.
This was a great conversation. Is there any last thing that you wanted to share with anyone?
I recommend people go and check out various blockchain social platforms and kind of play around with them. I would say most people don't even realize that you can earn money for the content that you put out, or the various tweets or posts or whatever that you're putting out, because legacy platforms extract all the value, and we've been so used to it that they don't even think that their content has value. But once they start using platforms that reward you right off the bat, you realize this content inherently has value. I just wasn't seeing any of it, so I didn't know that this was even possible. And once people actually start to play around with that, they'll see that a lot of the stuff that they put out has value, and they just didn't know. So I would say using all these kinds of platforms is discovering the value of the content that you always truly had. And I really appreciate you having me on the podcast. And yeah, I'd love to do it again sometime.